All right. So thank you all for joining. I know we'll have more people join as we go forward, but want to respect your time and welcome you to this segment of Webinars for Busy Lawyers. We're delighted that you can join us today. My name is Laura. I'm one of the Law Practice Management Advisors at Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers. If this is your first time joining us, LCL is a nonprofit that provides free confidential services to lawyers and law students throughout Massachusetts. Including in this, we have consultations, support groups, and webinars like this one. This webinar series, Webinar for Busy Lawyers, is designed to give lawyers practical takeaway tips because we know that you're busy and you want to improve your practices. And our guest speaker today is one of the best that I know of providing practical takeaway tips. He not only runs an excellent law firm, but he also is a superb speaker. So delighted to have him back. Our guest expert today is Chris Early. Chris is a personal injury lawyer and author in Boston, who since 2005 has concentrated his practice on the representation of the seriously injured and their families. When not working on growing and scaling his firm, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 children. He is also a really bad drummer. He encourages lawyers looking to grow their practices to contact him, as he loves discussing all things related to growing a law firm. And his website is chrisearly.com. So as noted, Chris has also been here for us before, which we are so grateful for. If you want to see his past webinars, you can go to Webinars for Busy Lawyers on Demand and see the ones for practical tips for time management and also for referrals and growing your firm. Today, we're going to talk about an important topic which people know that they should do, but they often find it hard to get started. So elevating client service is not only important for serving your current clients, but also, as Chris will note today, elevating client service in your law firm can help with business development. With that, I will turn it over to Chris, and thank you all for being with us today. And Chris, thank you so much for speaking.
I appreciate it, Laura. Thank you so much for that really kind introduction. Thank you so much to LOMAT for having me back again. I take this very seriously. So my ambition today is to provide everyone with some quick hitting tips and tactics that I've realized a modicum of success with in growing and scaling my practice. So we're going to get right into it. I know everyone's time is really valuable. So I hope that you come away with 1 or 2 things that can hopefully improve your practice, move the needle, make your life a little easier as you practice law. So the topic, of course, today is how to elevate client service in your law firm for business development. I believe that treating clients really, really well is the magical ingredient which can help you to build your practice. Depending on your desired level of growth, you I believe are very well served by really focusing on the betterment of the client, improving the client experience, making the client feel comfortable, inspiring confidence. We're going to talk about all that, but this is really all about really digging and diving into how to really make the client so happy with you and your firm. So we're going to get into those various ways of doing that now. So I'm a big quote guy. I'm going to start this one off with a quote. Maya Angelou. I've learned that people forget what you said, people forget what you did, people will never forget how you made them feel. That to me is important, right? We have to remember we are attorneys. People come to us with problems. They're coming to us because something great is happening in their lives. Generally speaking, there's an issue, there's a problem, there's an accident, an arrest, a divorce, some complicating some precipitating event has happened that leads the client to us. So there's a lot of distrust among the general public. So what we want to do is rile against that. We want to provide the best service. We want to wow the client. And like Maya Angelou said, we want to make people feel a certain way. And in this context, we make the clients feel superb about the result, about more importantly, not about just the result, but how you made them feel, how you treated them, how they came out at the end of the process, feeling about your firm. We want that to be on an extremely high level. And all these things we're going to talk about are really easy to do. To me, I believe it's low-hanging fruit that not many law firms at all, in my experience and dealings, utilize and exercise. So this is easy stuff to do. I highly encourage it. And so let's look at this from a high view. Why is this important? Why are we taking the time to talk about this today together? Well, only good things happen when we focus on the betterment of the client, right? Referrals happen. Again, I don't know the level that you're trying to grow your firm, but I'm trying to grow a big firm, and the firm is growing quickly. And the reason it's growing quickly at a fast rate is because we focus on the client, and that creates referrals, right? The more you focus on making the client happy, fulfilling their needs, solving their problem as expediently and as pain-free as possible, the more inclined they are to feel good, right? That's what we want. If they're feeling good, they probably want others to feel similar feelings. If they know someone who needs an attorney, they'll probably think of you, right? If you made them feel good, if you got a good result. But again, we're not really focusing on results. It's about the experience, right? And you got to remember, if you neglect this and you have a lot of unhappy clients, I read some statistic recently that happy customers don't really tell a whole lot of people about their experience, but unhappy ones really do. So the word spreads like wildfire. So if someone is unhappy, it's a red flag, right? Now, we can't make everyone happy. We're in the customer service business. There's always going to be someone who, no matter what we do, we bend over backwards. It's not enough. But by and large, people are reasonable. Our clients are reasonable. Give them a great experience. More likely than not, they'll refer others to you that they know. Now, I find, some clients, you just hit it out of the park, do a great job, and you'll never get a referral from them. But that's okay, because at some point, as you focus on this, at some point, these clients on average will make referral to you. It may not be immediate, it may not be many at all, or maybe 50 referrals. You never know. So treat everyone that you service kindly, and good things generally come from that, I find. And this focusing on the client creates a lot of reviews. My firm is inching towards 500 reviews because we're focused on the client, making the client really happy, right? So it takes effort and intention, but when the clients are happy, they're more inclined to leave a good review. And as we said before, we can't make everyone happy. If you get a bad review, and I see a lot of lawyers sort of get shaken up by it, it's okay. I embrace a bad review because we have many, many good reviews. If we have a bad review, well, it just shows that we can't, we're human. We can't satisfy everyone. And, this is really super important. When you respond to reviews, you're not responding to the person who wrote the review. You're responding to the future potential client who's reading that review. So you have an ethical duty to stay professional, to not reveal confidences, really remain above board. If you get nailed to the one-star review on Google, take it as an opportunity, offer to improve the situation for the client, because perhaps they're willing to rewrite the review and give you a higher rating. You don't know. But more likely than not, you're going to get good reviews once the clients are made to feel good and special. And this is also, when we drill down on improving the client experience, this makes team members have a more rewarding experience on the job, right? People, come to work to earn money, but they also want to feel like they're doing something purposeful, important, right? With meaning. So I find that my culture, my firm, sort of gets richer in teamwork and collaboration and just more smiles when we focus on the client, right? Because if we're just neglecting the clients, team members are going to get burnt out. They're going to leave. That's bad for business, right? It's really tough to lose a team member who's working out, because it's going to take you weeks, if not months, to not only find the replacement, but to train that person. So focusing on the betterment of the client not only is good for the clients, it's good for the staff, right? That means it's good for everyone in the office. And as I said, it's very detrimental to lose a good team member. And so your chances of retaining good team members that subscribe to your culture increases greatly when you focus on making things happy, right? And we're going to focus, this isn't just about the clients, it's also about the team members, but the predominant focus of today's discussion is the client. But that doesn't mean that team members are any less important. We're going to talk about both, but I find generally when clients are treated really well, it tends to create a better, happier work environment, which people want to stick around and be a part of moving forward, instead of leaving to go somewhere else, a different firm which has better culture and cares about the clients. So mindset, I'm a big mindset guy. I think everything starts with the mindset. So I've used the word betterment probably 10 times already, right? We are we are focusing on the client. And I'm always looking to optimize this. If you consider the practice of the law, it's not a practice, it's a business. We're a business provider, just like a dry cleaner, right? Just like the supermarket. We are a provider of services, right? So a client comes to us at the beginning stage with the raw product, right? And that's a case or cause of action. What we do is we process that down the assembly line, and we ultimately finish with a finished product, with a result, settlement, some type of closure, an agreement, a resolution of some kind. That process from A to Z, from start to finish, you should always be focusing on how can I plus this experience to the client? How can I make the client's journey faster, less stressful, more enjoyable, and just happier, right? Because again, the clients come to us with a problem, and our job is, we're problem solvers, right? I think sometimes we focus on, we're lawyers, we went to law school, we're barred. Well, let's just focus on what people care about. They don't care about your educational level. They'll rarely ever ask you, where'd you go to law school? What was your GPA? People don't care. What can you do for me? And the better you focus on that, the better that you're equipped to handle and to get into the mind of the client, what will help them as the best way possible as we move them down from point A to point Z at the end of the line. Think of Disney. I have 2 kids, like Laura mentioned. I'm going to Disney almost every year, and it's terrifically expensive, but we keep going back because they make us feel good, right? We shell out tons of money to Disney every year, but they make it so enjoyable that, money extraction on their part is, they've mastered that, right? So we want to think of Disney, the Ritz-Carlton. Think about the nicest restaurant you've ever been to, the nicest hotel, whatever it is, right? That should be no different in a law practice. We're no different, right? Just like Disney, just like the Ritz-Carlton, let's roll out the red carpet, provide white glove concierge-like service. That may seem sort of dramatic, but I feel that strongly that the clients, they expect that, right? Clients now, they have a level of expectation, and it's important that you provide that, because if you don't, they'll either never retain your services, or if they do, they'll jump ship and go to a competitor who can offer that type of high quality service. We're always trying to wow the client, always looking for an experience to plus it, to wow the client. We'll get into some specific tactics, but that I'm a big believer in. And I think too few lawyers think this way. I think a lot of times we take clients for granted, and I go the other way, right? I know how hard it is, expensive it is to bring a client into the fold. So it's super important for me, and I believe it should be important for you. Go above and beyond, never take the client for granted. Do everything you can, make the client happy. Referrals come, good reviews, happy work culture, happy team members. At the end of the day, it's going to lead to better profit for you, less work, and so we'll get into those things. So I believe that the client journey, right? It starts with a precipitating event, right? Something happened to them that requires the assistance of a lawyer. Now, how are we going to handle the client? How are we going to handle the problem? Well, you may be a solo, or perhaps you have people on board. But if you're not a solo and that you have team members on board, I think it's really important to hire only rock stars, right? You have to be really choosy and picky, because these people that you hire will be providing the customer service to your clients. So we want to be really picky on who we bring on the bus, right? Super choosy. I always look for a reason why the person wouldn't be a good team member, as opposed to becoming kind of becoming lured in, thinking, oh, this potential hire is the best. Let's be more discriminating. Look for ways that they may not be a good fit, and if they get past all those objective criteria that you employ, maybe they're a good fit. I go through a lot when I hire. I give a personality test. I have multiple team members, get eyes and ears on the applicant. I do a lot of interviewing, because when I hire someone, I need to know that they're going to kick some butt, because that means they're going to kick some butt for my clients. That's what we're here to do at the end of the day. And so when I interview, this is what I look for personally. This is just my way of doing it. I look for empathy, because empathy is, to me, really important, right? What we're dealing with, people have a problem. We need team members who can empathize and understand and care and be compassionate to that problem and how to solve the problem. I look for people who are humble. I won't hire someone who is not humble, because humility tends to translate to a better assimilation into the team, because at the end of the day, what it is, the team is assembled to provide high-level service. And I look for growth-minded people and core values. We have 5 core values in our office, and core values at my firm drive everything we do, literally everything we do. So if you are solo, you should still have core values, because at some point you'll probably hire people. If you already have people on board and you don't have core values, I would encourage you to do some serious thinking, right? No one can really tell you what your core values are. You have to discover them and really, really deeply think about what are your core values, because those core values, I find time and time again, attract job applicants to my firm that are so inclined, right? That mesh with our core values, and that translates to success on the delivery of the client services. We got to hire really slow. Now, if you have team members that are not working out, let's be honest, right? Let's not be unrealistic. They say a great test when you're deciding, is the team member a good fit? Ask yourself, would you hire the person again? Be honest and really truthful to yourself about that. If the answer is no, you wouldn't hire that person again. That person's a liability to your practice, to your firm, and to your clients. And generally, the sooner the better it is if it comes to parting ways with that team member. But I really try to attract team members and hire team members who care about helping. Again, I said they're empathetic, they're humble, but they actually like helping people. Not everyone out there wants to be of help to others. Some people are like that, some aren't. I want to attract and hire people who actually care about and are passionate about helping people with a problem. So, all right, they've gotten through all the tests. They've come out, and we've brought them on board. Now we need to onboard, right? Onboarding is really important. You can't just hire someone and just say, okay, have at it, help us make some money. It doesn't work that way. You got to really be, again, intentional about onboarding and really inculcating at the start that team member with the core values, always reinforcing core values, reinforcing the need for high-level client service. This is really important, because if you attract it into your practice an A player and you properly train that person up, the person can do some seriously good work for your firm. And the better you treat your team members, the better you treat your clients. As I said before, the more likely it is that team member is going to stick around for a while. And that's just what we want. We don't want turnover. We don't want volatility with our team. We want stability and we want stability. We want rock stars on the team. Culture. Laura, you've heard me talk about this. I'm a culture fanatic. I think it's all about culture. Culture is that which defines us. It's our purpose. It's our reason for doing what we do here. Now, it's so important that if there is ever any toxicity in your office, you need to get rid of that. No matter what that is. If there's anything toxic, that's gonna eventually leak down to the client experience. You can't have that, because that's going to create clients who leave bad reviews, don't refer, who tell everyone how bad the services are. Can't have that. So really important. If the team member isn't working out, if something isn't working out, you got to be honest, and you got to cut bait. It's not going to get any better. You got to be realistic and truthful to yourself, and get rid of toxicity yesterday, right? ASAP. And I've talked a lot about the clients, but I'm really in my firm, the culture is, team members. Team members are my priority, not clients. The team members are what I focus on. They're my team. My practice has scaled significantly in a short amount of time, and it's been scaling quickly because I focus on culture, right? I focus on weaving the culture into everything we do, and it attracts people who buy into that, who understand that, and care about that. So we're all speaking the same language. That permeates down to the client experience, and everybody wins. That's my objective, that everybody wins. That's the point of this for me. So team members for me are and always will be more important than clients. Now, you have to really be mindful of how you treat your team members, right? You gotta be generous with them. You have to give them shout outs. You have to show them that they're important. For example, I hired a paralegal a week ago, And I've been so busy, I haven't really been able to have a lot of interfacing with her. So I sent her a message. We use Slack in the office. I Slacked her a message saying, hey, just want to let you know, I haven't been able to talk, but I've been hearing from the attorney who you're working with that you've been doing a great job. Really appreciate it. We're really happy to have you. She got right back to me. Thank you so much. It means so much. And she, loved the message. And that's important. So you got to give people shout outs, catch them doing things good, and praise them when they do well, because that ultimately is how they're going to treat the clients, right? If you treat your staff like crap, what do you expect? Your clients are going to get that. Your clients are going to be treated like crap as well. We can't have that. That's a recipe for failure. That's a recipe for bar compliance. It's a recipe for disaster. Can't have it. It's not acceptable. Attract team members the right way. Treat them great. They'll treat your clients great as well. And this, we just talked about onboarding, but we have a lot of frequent meetings in the office talking about culture, always reinforcing the crucial significance of focusing on the client, right? That's really what it comes down to. But team members, if you're a business owner, you have to coach. You're a coach at the end of the day. You have to coach team members, reinforce standards. You can't let things slip. I don't think, at Disney, things slip very much. The Ritz-Carlton, things slip. Things stay constant and even because there's reinforcement, the standards, expectations. You need to do that in your own practice. It should be no different. And at our firm, we have a vision statement and core values. Like I said, if you don't already have core values, I would encourage you to do it immediately. And the vision statement, right? The vision should be understood by the whole team. The team should understand what the vision of your law firm is, and the core values kind of emanate from that vision. And so then, when you discuss that, when you emphasize that, people, your team members will understand and be reminded of that constantly, because that's really important. So back to the client, communication. This is, I think, the most common area of bar complaints is not communicating with clients. That's not acceptable. So at the very start of the case, that's when you set the stage, right? I think there's something called the recency bias. Basically, we want to have the first experience the best. And for me, that starts at intake, frankly. The moment that potential client calls us, they're not yet a client. The moment they call us and they speak to our intake department, that's when the first impression is made. We want to make sure that's a great impression. My intake coordinator, she's very empathetic. She's very she's very good at reinforcing the clients that we are experienced with this. You called the right place. I call it, stopping the shop. They don't have to call other law firms. They found the right lawyer. So it starts there, right? Now, once the case is signed and it gets assigned to a case manager, we have rhythmic communication protocols that the client is updated every 3 to 4 weeks without exception. They get emails through a customer relationship manager program. We believe in over communicating with clients because they'll never complain that they're getting too many communications. And I don't mean bombarding, I don't mean daily or even every few days, but let's keep it steady. Even if you have nothing new to report, communicate. As I said, we do it roughly every 4 weeks in my firm. I would encourage you to go no longer than 4 weeks. Sometimes we do it 3 weeks, but no more than 4. As I said, drip emails are a way to leverage automation technology. So you or your team don't have to actually email it out an update. We could just send drip emails that are automated that are intended to get into the head of the client and what they're dealing with. And they're all timed to coincide with that point of the case. That's helpful. I'm a big survey guy. I think surveys are important. You will never know what your clients think about you, the services your office provides until you ask them. So I send out through automation an email every 2 months asking, have you been contacted in the last 30 days? When I first started doing this, I got a torrent. I got a flood of clients saying, nope, I haven't been contacted. And so we sat down as a team and said, all right, this isn't good. Can't continue this. How can we get better? And we focused on client communication, right? Because that's one of our core values, good communication. The next time I sent that, the next time it went out automatically, that drip email asking, have you been contacted in the last 30 days, there was a precipitous drop in the number of people who said they have not been contacted. And since I started doing that, I've been getting less and less and less people emailing me saying, yep, Chris, I've been contacted. So we want to This is important because it keeps team members accountable, but it also reminds the clients that we're really interested, and it's important to us that you're communicating with. So that demonstrates to them that you care. Communication is important, so we're always stressing and impressing that upon the client. And that's really important. So surveys, low-hanging fruit, I would highly encourage you to do that if you're not already, because I guarantee you have some unhappy clients. As we said at the beginning, you can't make them all happy. Someone's unhappy. Our job is to figure out who it is and how can we make that experience better. All right, let's get personal, right? Again, we are not in the law business. This is a relationship business. Clients, to me, we call it our extended family, right? You're not a client. You're part of our extended family here at the Early Law Group. So we have to rid ourselves of the notion that this is transactional, right? It may be at its core, at its essence, but at the end of the day, these relationships we're forming. We're forming with team members and with clients. So yeah, it's transactional, but that doesn't mean it has to be cold and bitter, right? I mean, clients don't want to call lawyers. They don't like lawyers. They don't want to deal with lawyers. Let's break down those perceptions and be warm and comfortable with the clients. You know, make them feel comfortable, make them feel good, and just kind of go against the grain, because I think too many lawyers do that. They don't give enough to that, and I think there's quite a bit of issues that follow from that. You know, I don't know about you, but I post quite a bit of social media. I get you know, vulnerable. I talk about on social media my very unusual background, my very unusual childhood. I won't get into that now, but it's different. And I share that in drip emails. So when a client signs up with us, they'll get an email about me and that I'm a family man, that I come from a very unusual background. And I get emails from clients saying, hey, Chris, you know, I like your story, that resonated with me. I too have gone through XYZ issues in the past. So that creates affinity. We're communicating, we're getting warm and personal with the clients. This isn't transactional. This is relationship building. It starts in the very beginning and it goes even after the case ends. And we'll talk about that. So I think it's okay. You know, I've had clients who I've sat down with very recently. The client said, you know, didn't have a good experience. And I talked to this client and I got vulnerable with the client. And I got real with him. And when he got up, he and I shook hands and looked each other in the eye, and we had common ground. So I think being vulnerable is oftentimes neglected by lawyers. We're human beings helping human beings. That's what it's all about, relationships. I'm really focused on handwritten cards. I write about one handwritten card per day. It takes me 30 seconds to do. I think it's really important, and my team members are required to send handwritten cards, right? So we do personal injury law here. If we know that a client is having surgery, if they had a death in the family, if they had a job promotion, just got married, we send a card, right? According to the occasion, whatever that may be, but a very, you know, thoughtful card telling the client that we're thinking of the client during this particular time in their life. Again, it could be sympathetic, it could be congratulatory, whatever it is. Handwritten cards people love, because frankly, people don't get them in the mail too much. Birthday cards. We've recently been doing birthday calls, calling clients on their birthday. It's just a good way to not only say happy birthday to current clients, but former clients too. You should be sending birthday cards and or doing birthday calls to former clients, because as I've talked about in other webinars, they'll forget about you. No matter how good of a job you did for the client, they'll forget your name and they won't think of you, or they won't be able to think of your name and referral comes to mind or materializes in their life. So you want to make sure you show that connection, demonstrate that connection, maintain it with the clients. Always seek this is just an example of showing you care, right? Demonstrating care, love, and concern. That starts at intake, and that doesn't stop. At the end of the case, you know, when the pandemic hit, it was a scary time, because in personal injury law, there was a huge reduction in accidents. That means there were no cases. So what we did at my firm, we just started calling old clients, right? Not looking for anything, asking for anything, just checking. Hey, John, how are you doing? How is everything? I remember your son was playing football, or your daughter was in ballet, or whatever. So it's really important to continue the dialogue, touch base with clients frequently. Just because the case is over doesn't mean they're no longer a client. Again, I call it the extended family. They're a client for life, and I have every intention of keeping them in the family. but that does require communication and just sustaining the relationship. So how do we do? So I talked about surveys before, and I talked about a client who I sat down with recently who I got vulnerable with, and we connected on a kind of a man-to-man, person-to-person level. It was very, very meaningful. I recently started doing this. When a client comes in to get the settlement check, I'll say, hey, do you have a couple minutes to talk? I'll bring them into my office, sit down, close the door and say, hey, how did we do? Right? Did we perform up to your standards? Did we exceed your expectations? Did we strike out? How did we do? And a lot of times clients say, oh, you guys are good. Yeah, thank you. Because they have a check in their hand. They're probably feeling pretty good. But I want to know, how can we get better? Because I don't, hearing hearing about things we did good, that's well and all, but I want to hear about problems, because that's how we do better. So that's how you fix problems. Again, this is through surveys as well as an exit interview, asking how do we do, how can we do better? And you'll get nuggets that you can really use to tweak the client journey. Again, as they start from point A and then get to point Z in the process, you always want to optimize that. Look for details, right? And look, if the client's just super happy, has no criticism, well, that's fine. I mean, I'm not gonna, harass the client. If that's the way it is, then they have no feedback that we can improve upon. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And since you had a good experience, please remember us when you if someone, family or friend, needs an attorney, because we can't assume that they know you want referrals. A lot of clients never think about referrals, and they assume you don't even want referrals. You're an attorney, you're so busy. Well, clients don't understand that, we want referrals, we want cases. So, when I meet with a client and they're feeling really good, I'll say, well, please, we appreciate your referral in the future. And because I'm a big believer that if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Here are some client service books that have helped me try to figure some stuff out and try to improve this process. Joey Coleman, he's an attorney. He wrote Never Lose a Customer Again. I read it a couple of years ago, a really good book. The Happy Customer Handbook by Keith Lee will take you probably 25 minutes to read. It's got just some super quick hitting tips on how to really wow the clients. I think Keith is in the manufacturing industry, or I forget exactly what he does. But again, we can borrow from other industries. Let's look outside the practice of law for inspirational ideas on how other industries, how other businesses wow their clients. And that can be so instructive and informative to us as we try to grow and improve our practices. That's all I have on the topic. I love talking about this stuff, speaking about it. I write for Mass Lawyers Weekly, write for the ABA. I love the topic of law firm practice management, scaling a practice. We have a completely free newsletter. I talk about topics relating to everything to do with running a practice. Again, totally free. And my ambition, my goal is to have hopefully provide value to you. So if you want to get on that list, we would love to have you. And my goal is that it gives good value to you that you can take from and help improve your practice. But if you ever want to, grab coffee, chat, if this resonates with you, if you're passionate about growing a practice, you like talking about it, well, I'd love to hear from you. So reach out, email me. Just please spell my last name the right way. It's commonly misspelled. Earley is my last name. Text me. Would love to connect with you. And Laura, that is everything I have today. If there's any questions, I would be pleased to answer any.
Chris, this was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. I apologize. I forgot at the beginning to invite people, if they have questions, to put them in the chat. So I certainly invite you to now, or if you want to, in the interest of time, also raise your hand. I can unmute you as you go forward as well. In the chat is certainly easy. Chris, I just want to note a few things. Having worked in different legal environments and worked with attorneys from all different sorts of practice areas, all different size firms, the tips you gave are right on the money, being about client-centered. That's how law firms are growing, not only to have better customers, but growing their business, focusing on teamwork and culture, the way you treat your team, have them, if you treat them well, that they'll treat customers well. I have seen this over and over. I've also seen the reverse over and over. And so what you say is just so spot on. Thank you so much for all your tips on this. I will also note too for the audience that I actually have joined Chris's newsletter. I've joined a lot of newsletters. Most of them I've unsubscribed to over time. His I don't, because it's actually full of great tips. So it's really worth your time. I would encourage you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing questions come in the chat right now. And let me just check too. All right, I'm not seeing raised hands for time being. We'll leave it open for another minute or two in case people are in the midst of writing their question, and then we can get to it. Chris, I just want to ask you too, for people that may be newer to the practice of law and they may be, intimidated, say, by the thought of, hiring a rock star candidate, if they're thinking in this climate, how can I even get anyone at all to apply? Do you happen to have tips for them if they're just starting out on creating this good culture or finding good talent that will really help them treat the clients the best?
Well, you're going to attract, I think the universe will give you what you're looking for. So it's all about the mindset. So for a time I was getting discouraged with hiring, couldn't find anyone. The pandemic was just brutal when it came to hiring. So I started to reframe my perspective, and I realized that that person's out there. You just got to find them, right? So you don't build a staff real quickly. This is brick by brick, right? Client by client, team member by team member. So you don't hire 5, 10 people at once. You start with one, and then you go to 2 and 3, depending on your trajectory, your growth, right? But again, I hate to belabor it, mindset, right? If you think it's gonna be so hard to find someone, if you're discouraged, well, that's the way it's gonna be. But if you're willing to put in the extra time, no, it is so hard. I decided to scale at a time when hiring is just so challenging. But I still was able to hire. We're up to I have 11 staff right now. I had 1 when the pandemic started. So I assure you, if talent is out there, right? And I could have hired a bunch of people, right? But they just weren't going to be a good fit. So how would that help me or that person or the clients? I brought in someone who wasn't a good fit. Don't fall in love with job applicants. And when I say look for reasons not to hire them, I don't mean be pessimistic and think this person's, can't work out and just be fatalistic, but just be really, appreciate the cost that is incurred if the person doesn't work out. Right? The clients are upset that that person departed, you're upset, you got to spend time hiring. So let's get it right. Now, sometimes, we do our best, we get it wrong and we have to part ways, or that team member leaves, and that's fine. But I've seen time and time again, if you employ some strict discipline hiring practices and procedures and really kick the tire, really do your due diligence. I have a bunch of questions that I ask that are real curveball questions that I ask job applicants. If anyone on the call wants to see that, I'm happy to share it. I'll ask questions like, if you were a salad, what ingredient would you be and why? And so if the person really paused, if you have trouble answering that, it tells me how well can you think on your feet, especially an attorney. I want an attorney to give me an answer pretty quickly. It shows, spontaneous thinking, creative thinking, and I get real. I say, what's the worst thing a previous employer would say about you? It may seem awkward, but I've asked so many times, I say with a straight face because I want to know, because I know from personal experience, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. I want to know, what would people say about you? What's your Achilles heel, right? I could give you countless other questions, but I won't belabor the point. But if anyone is interested in seeing that, I would share them with you. I'd be happy to, if you have creative interview strategies that you employ, but I just think it starts with hiring. That's where it all begins, right? And when you get the right person on the bus, that's when your odds of succeeding with I don't know, we all have a different. I'm trying to grow a significant practice. You may want to hire 1 people. You may want to be a solo, right? But you may have hired freelancers to help you, independent contractors. Be equally discerning with them. You want to be careful on who you work with, because if you work with the wrong people, the work product will be diluted. The communication may be problematic. So, really take that hiring seriously. That's obviously, I'm pretty passionate about that.
That is fantastic advice. Thank you, Chris. And that reflects too that it's all about your brand and your reputation. As you noted, former clients can be some of your best referral services. And so if you and your team treat them well, and if you have the best team members you can on your team, that's all the better for going forward. One more question as we finish up today. In talking about elevating client service, you noted a great way to do it is with exit interviews and surveys with the people. Would you talk about some examples of how you have learned information of what clients, preferred would be better, and then how you implemented that to improve your client service from the surveys or the exit interview?
An ambulance decided to go down the street at a very loud, with some loud sirens. I'm so sorry. Could you tell
No,
me
no,
that?
no, that's fine. I was wondering if you could share an example of something you learned from the exit interview or a client survey, and then how you implemented the suggestion to improve client service.
Yeah,
If
sure,
you-
of course. Thank you. So a lot of it comes down, I feel like clients they don't expect a lot. Like, they're not needy. I'm reading a good book. I'm reading a book on intake. It's a good book. It's by Gary Falkowitz. It's all about intake. And he was explaining that clients would expect much, just do some work. And then if you can just try a little bit harder, you're going to look like a rock star, right? So let's go above and beyond. But in terms of that question, if I distilled it down, what I hear is communication. My case manager didn't contact me enough. Well, that's not good, right? So that's a problem, because how many other people are thinking the same thing? Because you got to remember, a lot of your clients have issues with the service you're providing, but they're not going to tell you. So we got to, like we said before, kind of flush that out. So if I hear that a client, it just takes one unhappy client, and then to me that's the equivalent of 100 unhappy clients. That's how I look at it. So okay, alarm bells go off. I got to go and talk to that case manager. What happened? Because we have nice data that we track, so I can see. Oh yeah, this client was correct. He wasn't contacted enough. How did that happen? We can't. And then we talk. I compare it to a core value, right? Well, talk about good communication. Are we communicating? Are we using? Are we living that core value of good communication when the client's unhappy with the level of communication? So a lot of this comes down to, as the owner of the business, with teaching and instructing and leading on how it should be done. So next time we don't have similar issues in the future with future clients. I'm sorry, it's so loud out there today.
No, that is great. Do you have time for a few more questions with the
Of
noise?
course.
All right. Kevin, I'm going to put you on next, so go ahead.
Oh, am I talking here?
Yes.
Hey, Chris, how are you? Thank you. I hopped on a little late, but I got a couple of questions for you.
Of course. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Listen, just so I'm a pure solo, and I'm wondering, in your experience, directly or indirectly, what advice you can offer as far as how to finance growth. Meaning, I've got a certain amount of operating, capital in my operating budget, but I would imagine to go out and hire, do you recommend using a line of credit, using some other type of banking tool, or your operating budget? And I guess sort of a related question that I followed up with was, do you have any recommendation for a solo to grow? Meaning, who would be the best first hire? Is it a associate? Is it a paralegal? Is it a admin? So I think they're kind of both related. So if that makes sense, I'd be interested in what you had to say.
No, 100%. So you got to remember, as a preliminary matter, when you hire someone, you don't pay the salary out on the first day. We spread that out, right? So depending on the particular financial picture, it depends. Is there enough cash flow? Is there enough cash flow where you don't have to dip into a line of credit? I would encourage everyone who runs a practice to have a line of credit. I think it's really important. But it really depends on the cash flow, finances, appetite for risk, right? How many people are you looking to hire? I think you got to figure out, Kevin, start with the end in mind. Where am I trying to get to? Do I want a firm with 5 lawyers and 10 paralegals? Do I want just one lawyer and call it a day? Figure out what you want, and then the path will become evident, I feel, right? If you know where you're going, you know the steps to take. So it's hard to say who the first hire should be. It depends on where you are now, caseload, can you support, it's talking about finances, the attorney is the most expensive hire, right? Okay, is there the finances support that? If so, do you need a lawyer? Well, it may be a good fit, but I'm pretty focused on the telephone. So if you're solo and you're answering the phones, my first hire in that situation, I don't know your particular situation. If it's just you answering phones, I would definitely get some on the phones. I don't think the attorney should ever be answering phones. So I guess that would be my first hire. Who after that, it depends on where you're trying to get to. And I think, again, with the end in mind, that'll lead you on the path of what the next steps would be. And then in terms of, how much you're looking to grow, I don't know. I only know what I'm trying to do. So it's hard for me to say. I guess your business, what hire needs to be made. But if you have a hiring need, don't wait, right? It's just gonna delay your progress, right? So equally important to me is getting rid of a bad team member. Equally important to that is hiring a team member when you need one, because you're just holding yourself back. I hope that's helpful. I kind of threw a lot out there, but
no, I got it. I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Kevin, I'll add just a few things to that. I think if you can write down what you most need the team member for, write out what duties you'd like to delegate, what responsibilities you'd like to take them on, and then you can see, is it that I need someone just for reception and answer the phones? Do I need administrative help? Do I need drafting support for doing pleadings? What are your priorities? And then are you looking for an administrator or what sort? If you have a temporary project that you need some help on, but you won't need them continuing, maybe you want to look like a place like law clerk, where you can hire, people that have JDs for a certain period of time just for the project. There's all different sorts of things depending on what you need. So I would encourage you to really flesh out as much as you can. Here are the specific duties I'd like to delegate, and then have that dictate what sort of person you're looking for.
That's great, Laura. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Robert, I see that your hand is raised also, so I will unmute you now. Robert, can you hear us? Let's see if he is still there. All right, well, maybe Robert is taking just a moment to come on. Let me see if we have other hands raised in the meantime. All right, I don't see that. Well, we're waiting to see if Robert can come back. Chris, that was so tantalizing with the list of creative interview questions. Do you mind giving us one or two more?
Yeah, no,
the salad dressing.
I'd be happy to. And one other thing about Kevin just talked about hiring, I've had good success with law students. I've had some hits and misses, but for the most part, if you find a great one, that person can be developed into a future attorney, because they're obviously going to be an attorney very soon, right? So that is a very accessible part of the or segment of the job market that you can utilize. And it's not that expensive. You generally get people who, if you're in law school, you're pretty diligent, you work hard, you show up. So a lot of those good traits that you want. And if you can groom, if you could develop that person to a potential attorney, you know what you're getting. I know I've never hired an attorney who worked for me as a law clerk, but I know attorneys who have, and they've had very good success. So I'm just going to pull up the some questions, but Ken, because I'm looking, I don't want to do a boring interview. I don't want to ask the same old, because everyone asks that. The applicant is ready for that, right? There's books that applicants can read and study on things and how to kind of ace an interview, if you will. But I like to sort of, rattle the cage and really see, who is this person? So some other questions. I've got quite a bit. So I like to start, when did you start working? Because it just shows me, like, I ask, how old were you when you had your first job? Because if I if they tell me, oh, I was a paper boy or paper girl, or whatever, and they're just always working, I look for that. I like people who have a commitment, like they're exercise buffs, or they're devoted chess players, or they love the banjo. It just shows a certain stick-to-itness, and I like that. It shows that the ability to stick on something, be passionate about something. I'll ask, how do you cope with stress? Not like how good are you at coping with stress, like how do you actually cope with stress? I tend to like to see some type of adversity in the person's life that they've had, that they've had some type of adversity. I just saw the comment. No, I don't ask age. I'm just asking about, prior work history. That's different than an age question. I just want to know, when did you start working? What kind of jobs did you have at that time? And I'd like to ask about like a work crisis. If you had a specific work crisis, how did you handle it? Give me a specific example. Things like that. I'll ask, what is your garage? Do you have a garage? What does it look like? If they say, oh my God, my garage is a total mess. Things are all over the place. Okay, well, why is that? Why isn't it kind of organized? And, we're just trying to look for tells here. We're just trying to look for things that will tell us things that could portend either success or failure in the job. And let's see, I asked them, why would you quit this job if we hired you? Why would you quit? I like to hear, kind of what that reason could be. And this is one of my favorites, is what are you reading, watching, and listening to? I start the interview with that, because for the most part, if the person has just no interest in reading, it just shows maybe they're not growth minded. I don't, I won't write them off, but they say, oh, I never read books, never read anything. I don't care if you read, just any, like a magazine. I don't care what that is. It just shows a curiosity, and I like that, right? What do you listen to? What kind of things do you listen to, read? What do you like to watch? I want to hear some curiosity, that they have some type of curiosity about the world and learning about it. Because I don't care, it doesn't have to be like physics or something, something abstract like that I would definitely know nothing about, but more, again, curiosity, thirst for learning, growth minded, right? And we're just trying to project success, right, on the team. Can this person work out? But yeah, I want to see a level of industry that there's a certain, because I want people like me who started work early and have always worked. That's really important to me. Hardworking people, because we want to attract people who are like us. No, I don't want a bunch of Chris Earlys running around here. That's exactly what I don't want. I want people that are complementary to me, they're different than me, that bring things that I don't have or not able to bring to the table. But I also want people who are kind of, like I said, a core values fit. And one of our core values is that we work hard. So I definitely need hard workers.
Those are great tips, Chris. Really appreciate that. I would note too, just from a personal level, if you were curious about something, I would encourage you to start learning it, even if it's at a very small basis. Like I took a course this summer in big data. I had been interested in it for a while, hadn't taken something because I don't know how to code yet. Found a course where you didn't have to know to code, and it's more about the concepts. And it can just increase your thirst for that subject and see things in a new way with intersections. So if you have interests that you've been thinking about and haven't pursued yet, there's probably a podcast out there or a blog, and I just would encourage you to look for it as well.
100% agree. Just one final question. So we're a personal injury law firm. So this is one of my most important questions that I ask is, why do you want to work for a personal injury law firm? If the person says, I just need a job, look, I can understand that, but I need more. If that person says, I want to help people, it's like, oh, okay, all right, I hear you. Why do you want to help people? Right? Well, it's important to me. Why is it important to you? Just dig and ask why. Don't, let's have a real dialogue, a dynamic conversation, instead of just a generic, vanilla interview. try to go deep. Why is that? Why? And figure out as much as possibly can. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you want to, don't want to ask questions that are untoward. That goes without saying. But there's great, latitude that the potential that the employer could ask well within the confines of what's permissible. So I think we have to, utilize that as much as possible.
That is excellent. Thank you so much, Chris.
Of course.
I want to thank all of our attendees today. I want to thank our guest speaker. We appreciate all of your time so much. Robert, I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get to you. I know your hand was raised, but for whatever reason, we weren't able to connect for the last while. I invite you to email us afterwards if you are having audio troubles. I want to note our next webinar for busy lawyers will be on October 12th. It will be about helping lawyers with ADHD with my colleague, Dr. Sean Healy. As a note too, if you have questions about LCL, please contact us. We have a lot of free services for attorneys in the state. If you have questions for Chris, please contact him or sign up for his newsletter. As noted, it has lots of great tips. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on Webinars for Busy Lawyers today and looking to improve your practice. We really appreciate having all of you. And Chris, I'll turn it to you for final words. Thank you again so much for being a terrific expert guest speaker on this topic.
You're way too kind. Once again, Laura, appreciate you, appreciate LCLMA, appreciate all the busy lawyers that took the time. I hope there was some element of value. I'm obviously very passionate about this stuff, and I would love to carry on the conversation. Reach out to me. I put my email in the chat. Don't be a stranger. Let's connect. If it doesn't, maybe it doesn't involve a referral back and forth, but we can kind of help each other grow. I think it'd be well worth our time to connect. So, Laura, thank you so much again. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you.